All right, small group leaders, it's time for the second video. This second video is about how to lead a small group. Now, obviously, there is so much involved in leading a small group, and a short 10-minute video is not going to give you all of the tools, but I just want to try to put in your hands, especially if you've never led a small group, some really simple, easy things to understand about leading a small group. And so I'm going to break up this video into two videos. So how to lead a small group part 1 and how to lead a small group part 2, because this is probably the most important of all videos for people who've never led a small group before. So the first video, we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about facilitator versus teacher. We're going to talk about the stages of a small group. We're going to talk about what makes a great leader. And we're going to talk about what makes a healthy leader. And so let's dive into the first one. We have 9 minutes to go through this. Facilitator versus teacher. Well, first and foremost, you have not been asked to lead a small group because you're a theologian or because you're a Bible scholar or because you know everything about the Bible. You've been asked to be a small group leader because you are fat, faithful, available, and teachable. You heard me say that over and over. Faithful. Yes, I'll lead a small group. Available, show up, be faithful to your small group. And teachable, I'm going to be willing to learn. I'm going to watch these videos. I'm going to respond to these videos. I'm going to participate in the Facebook group for small group leaders. That's what we're looking for. And so let's talk a little bit about what it looks like to facilitate a small group as opposed to just lecture or teach a small group. It's not a Bible study. It's not just to hang out and have community either. It is much more than that. It's very specific, and we want you to be able to facilitate that time. So first and foremost is you got to let people talk in the group. You got to give people an opportunity to talk, and you've got to help people who are over talkers to not dominate the entire conversation. And so here's a couple of things for you as a leader to be a great facilitator. Number 1, don't do all the talking. Don't do all the talking. Number 2, be comfortable with silence. Silence is golden. Silence is okay. It seems awkward, but it's perfectly okay to have silence in your small group. The third thing is be a good listener. Listen to what they're saying. And if you don't understand what someone's saying, and you can teach your other members too, maybe repeat what they said just to make sure you have clarity. Another thing is don't answer your own questions. Don't ask a question and look around, no one's answering, and then you answer your own questions. You're facilitating, you're throwing those questions out there, and you're eliciting a response. So wait. Silence is okay. Remember, just pause and someone will eventually answer. Maybe after time you need to restate the question, but don't answer your own questions. The next thing is ask open-ended questions that don't get those yes and no responses. Like, don't say, did you like this verse? Instead, maybe say, what did you like about this verse that we just read? Or this scripture or this thought? Another thing is make sure everyone understands the purpose of the group from day one. This is huge. It's huge for you to know, and it's huge for your group to know. Because you don't want people coming into a group going, what? I didn't know we were going to talk about Jesus. I didn't know we were going to read the Bible. The whole point of a small group at Saints Community Church is to make disciples who make disciples. So you don't just get around to it if you just hang out together and just have fun together. I mean, you have to eventually make disciples in this group. That's what Jesus wanted us to do. That's why small groups exist. That's why we as a church have small groups. And so make sure everyone understands from the beginning, no matter what background they're from. Hey, let me just tell you the purpose of this group is to help make disciples who make disciples. And if you're new in the faith, this is all going to be new to you. And just explain. Just tell them what it is. Why would someone come to a small church small group and be shocked when you say it's about discipleship or it's about Jesus? You may have to explain what discipleship is. It's learning to follow Jesus, but just be open and honest from day one. Another thing is involve everyone. Make sure that there's not someone in the group that's just sitting there and not responding and not engaging in the information. And then a big thing about small group, leading a small group, is when you have material, and I will write a lesson each week to help you with a sermon-based lesson, or if you use some other stuff that we work together for you to use, remember that whatever you use, the material you use, the goal is not to get through the material. That's not the goal of the small group. And so don't feel rushed or to get through everything. That material is to help facilitate the small group. So those are just some things about facilitating versus teaching. Don't do all the talking. Be comfortable with silence. Be a good listener. Don't answer your own questions. Ask open-ended questions. Make sure everyone understands the purpose from day one. Involve everyone. And don't focus solely on getting through the material. Okay, the next thing is stages of a small group. There are 3 stages of a small group: learning, loving, and leaving. The learning phase is when you have your first small group, you don't want to say, okay, open the Bible to Leviticus, we're going to knock this out, You want to get to know people. People are going to be open to learn if there's relationship involved. So you want to spend at least 1 or 2 small groups getting to know each other, asking questions like, where are you from? What's your favorite food? Whatever. And we have tons of resources that can help you ask great questions, which brings me to the next thing. Make sure you ask good questions. A small group leader that asks great questions is going to be very, very successful in leading a small group, and especially during the learning stage. So there's a learning stage where you get to know each other. The loving stage is when you go much deeper, when you care for your group, and we're going to talk about that in another video, caring. This is when you do life together, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, when you do things beyond just that small group time. And then finally, the leaving stage. This is all about multiplication. This is where you grow your group to the point where you have raised up 2 or 3 small group leaders within your group, and now they can go and lead their own group. So there's the learning stage, getting to know each other through relationship, loving, getting deep with your group, and really doing life together and really loving and caring for one another. And then the third is leaving, when you can build your group to maturity, and then they can go lead other groups. So that's the stages of a small group. And then the next 2 things, final things, is what makes a great leader, what makes a healthy leader. What makes a great leader? A great leader prays for their small group daily. If you pray for your small group daily, you are a phenomenal leader right off from the bat, that you promise to pray, lift them up to Jesus. Another great aspect of a small group leader is that you contact them regularly, not just during small group time, that you have communication outside of the small group. Another thing is you are prepared for the group meeting. You don't just wing it. You know what you're going to talk about. You have a plan, and we can help you with that. Another thing is you are committed to your own personal spiritual growth, that you grow as a disciple. And then, that you remember that God is in charge, that ministry belongs to God ultimately. And finally, that you spend time with members of your group outside of the group. Hey, the last thing is what makes a healthy leader. I think there's a lot of things, but here's 3 keys, 3 of the most important things. Number 1 is a healthy leader spends times with friends who are non-Christians and invites them to their group. If you don't have any non-Christian friends and nobody in your group does, that's not healthy. The second thing is you serve. You serve even when treated like a servant. You serve before you're asked to serve. A healthy leader is always serving. And finally, you read. Leaders are readers. You read to grow. You are healthy when you read and you understand that. So just to wrap up, you're a facilitator versus a teacher. There's 3 stages of a small group: learning, loving, and leaving. There's some things that make you a great leader and things that make you a healthy leader. Hopefully these things help. Be looking in the comments for some more material.